Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. As people come on to the live session, again, as a live host who's done this quite a bit, it's always nice to get those warm and fuzzies. Let me know where you're visiting from. I know it's so funny to say visiting from in a live session where we're all on video, but where you're visiting from, just always want to make sure, of course, you can hear and see me okay. A gray day here and rainy in San Diego, so the lighting is a little funky today, but it's all good. So, as always, I'm so excited to be back, and we got a ton to cover today. So, as people hop on to the live again, let me know where you're visiting from. Let me know that you can see and hear me okay, and then we're going to talk through. Hi. Okay, so we got one person coming in. So we're going to talk through a number of items today in this live session. In our downtime, as 2023 and 2024, the live sessions have been a little bit slower. We're going to talk about how to prepare for a job interview. That's really the focus of our downtime, but any and all questions are absolutely 100% welcome. So please come in and ask any question you like. So let's just cover a few quick agenda items before diving in. And so, my number one, I got to go to so close right now. My AI product is launching on Monday of next week. So that's Monday, February 26th. If you have not signed up as an early adopter, just go to practiceinterviews.com, practiceinterviews.com/AI, sign up to become an early adopter. We're going to give 30% off to anybody who just signs up in the next 6 days. So make sure you do that. Again, I just want to make sure we're giving a nice discount for anybody who signs up as an early adopter. And then, of course, we're going to poke you a little bit if you haven't signed up or haven't bought the service yet. But obviously, I'm super excited. Lots of nerves, tons and tons of work that goes into the final week of doing this. So I'm going to be spending 15, 16 hours a day in this office just trying to get things done. But I'm super, super excited. So the AI launches February 26th. You'll see it in all my material. You won't be able to miss the fact that that's happening. Let's talk about a couple of other things really, really quickly. So what I want to focus in on is that 20-part video series that I'm doing on YouTube. Like, definitely, if you haven't, I know we're getting people who are coming in from YouTube and LinkedIn during these lives, but what those 20 videos, the focus of those 20 videos is to show you how we can make a good answer great. And so if you haven't had an opportunity, please check them out. I go through basically a question, a specific role at a specific company, and then I kind of show you the foundational steps of what a good answer looks like. And I really wanted to do 20 videos leading up to the AI launch. So again, if you haven't checked those out, I'm releasing 3 more videos, so they'll be out on there'll be one out on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then I'm probably going to take a week or two off. Just 20 videos ended up being candidly a little bit more work than I anticipated, but I definitely wanted to deliver value before the launch. A couple of other items, then let's dive in. If you didn't know or you don't know a lot about me, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. Obviously, the AI tool is out on February 26th on Monday. I also do one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching. I do want to offer a discount on my course today. If you use the coupon code PA, PIAI, again, that's PIAI. It's $200 off the interview mastery course. That's just today. That will expire at 11:59 Pacific time tonight. If you like what I'm doing, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, and then new original content every Monday. And if I'm not going to produce original content in a given week, I'll put that in the YouTube community tab. Definitely going to be taking next Monday off of doing original content at least. But I will be back live next week. Okay, let's dive in. Let's get into it. And then again, in our downtime, we'll talk about some of the key steps for how to prepare for a job interview. Thank you again for being here. Hi, thanks for being here. Joining from the DMV area. Awesome. Okay. Prescott, Arizona. Like that little, I like this. I switched this up last week and it's got the nice little images, which I love. How's it going? Hi from CT. And if you grew up in New England, we tend to, which I did, I grew up in Massachusetts, and we tend to abbreviate all the New England states. So Connecticut, CT, Mass is MA, etc. Just a little tidbit if you didn't know for fun. Not sure if there's a connection issue. Okay. Let me know if anybody else is having a connection issue. If there's any challenges with my voice or the visual, um, LinkedIn and StreamYard, which is the third party streaming service, sometimes there can be a little bit of a hiccup. Just let me know. Can you talk about the technical part of the RRK first screen? What are the top tips, strategies for this round? Absolutely. RRK is an abbreviation for role related knowledge. It's a pretty typical, I mean, basically every company, whether they call it that or not, is going to have at least one of those. But the RRK interview, typically at Google, if you're getting technical questions, so let's bring up a sample job. Obviously, if you want to ask more about a specific position, I'm happy to help. But like a customer engineer, for example, like customer engineers, really, it's really about communication skills are going to be number one, but technical skills, especially in a cloud environment, are going to be really critical as well. So, technical question might be, and I'm going to just use a really old school, really common one. How does Netflix work in the cloud? Right. And so, again, it's a very basic question, but those are the types of technical questions where they're going to want to they're going to want you to demonstrate how you understand setting things up in a technical environment. And how does Netflix work in the cloud? Like, I'm definitely not going to dive in and just answer that question. What I really want to understand is, okay, well, what are we talking about it from? A technical perspective, a user perspective, etc. And then we are going to follow the CFAS method, right? So we're going to clarify, we're going to provide a framework, because even when you get into kind of solution design and system design, we still want to set the criteria, the framework, the outline, then we'll make a few assumptions and solve. But technical questions are going to be around the role. And what I'm really trying to get at is sometimes the technical questions, like how does Netflix work in the cloud, it seems like a very straightforward question. You're just supposed to jump at it and answer it. But in reality, there can be a lot of different approaches we take. So I still recommend for the CFAS method, or sorry, I still recommend for technical questions using the CFAS method, because if we make all the assumptions and just solve those technical questions, it's not going to be great. Please let me know if that answered your question. I'm happy to go in more depth. Okay, awesome. I hope check out everything. Yeah, yeah, awesome. Hi from ATX. Okay, awesome. Virginia. Oh, Sweden. The very, very top of my list of places that I have to visit immediately. So thanks for being here. I know it's getting a little late on your side. Hey, Jeff, I don't know if you remember me, but you helped me with an issue of not hearing back from my recruiter. Okay. Good news. My feedback was positive and your videos helped a lot. Ethan, amazing. I'm really, really glad. Um, every time you hear back, it's nice to hear back, because it's at any company, at all companies, it's not common to hear back these days as much as we want to. Yes. Okay. I'm not sure if that is prompting to, maybe there's a little bit of a technical hiccup or some sort of glitch on LinkedIn. Please let me know. So from cold CT. Yeah. I would complain in San Diego, but it's a little drizzle and low 60s, and we need the rain anyway, so can't complain. And yeah, it's nice to be in the Southwest. Your videos were spot on when helping me prepare for the Google interview, and now I'm waiting on hearing back from the local hiring manager. Amazing. Now remember, again, I don't really know enough, and you can come in and let us know, but whenever you're talking to that hiring manager, I have very, very specific recommendations, and typically this is a more in a classic, like, team match scenario, but with the hiring manager, everybody can see if you can't see, I'm standing. I'm standing, and that's very intentional. I want my voice to have more depth. I want to have more energy, more excitement. So I do recommend standing if you're physically capable. I also definitely recommend having great answers to tell me about yourself, why the company, why the position. Those are also important. Remember, think in a rule of 3 in 1 minute or less. But the biggest one, whenever we get these conversations with the hiring manager, typically what I've seen is very typically has been very self-focused, meaning, what can I expect? What are the biggest challenges I'm gonna face? How am I gonna do this or that? Flip it. What do you love the most about the company? What do you love the most about the role? What do you love the most about leading this team? Those are critical questions because it gets them talking about themselves, and if they say anything negative or there are any flags that come up, like, that's a great indication that maybe this is a hiring manager we don't wanna work for. So, just something to consider. But good luck, and thanks for letting us know. During my Dublin GCS business internship final interview in 2 weeks, any difference to a standard sales interview? Any tips? Um, let's see. So business internship final interview. Um, typically typically the internship interviews, and this is again just casting a wide net, tend to lean more behavioral. Internship, apprenticeship, more tell me about a time when, give me an example of, etc. But be ready for anything. So in that final interview, I just want you to be ready for hypothetical questions, ready for behavioral questions. They're gonna lean behavioral, but again, just practice as much as you possibly can. It's kind of like we think about the criticality of these roles, and sometimes one job and even an internship can really be opening multiple doors. We just have to spend more time than we think preparing, and I think that under preparation is a huge part of the reason why people don't do as well in the interviews as they would like is because they haven't prepped enough, and this is a great transition into talking a little bit more about this subject area today, obviously, as we get a break in the questions. Okay, yeah, I think if for anybody watching this who hasn't been to Sweden, I think it's probably on the top of all of our list just because it's known to be just such a beautiful country. Um, so we got a little bit of a downtime here. Anybody coming in, any and all questions are welcome. Any comments, anything. Let's talk about it. That's what I'm here to do. This is really like a Q&A session. I'll go on a little bit of a sidebar, but somebody criticized the live last week and said, wow, like an hour is too long to talk about whether we should still be interviewing or not. But obviously, they hadn't watched the video because we had only talked about that for a few minutes, right? And that's really the goal of any live session that I do is I'm trying to create a subject area so we have something to talk about in the downtime, but it's really a Q&A session. And I'm really getting excited because I'm getting closer to that 156 number of lives, and I think 156 is cool. It just means 3 years basically worth of a live every week. So I'm getting pretty close. I'm almost at 150 now. I think today is 147 in terms of lives, and I just never thought I'd go live this much. So it's been a fun experience, and thank you everybody for being here. So a little bit of downtime again. Any questions, please bring them my way. But how to prepare for a job interview. So the great news about preparing for a job interview in 2024 is it literally takes less time than it used to because of generative AI. So when it comes to both behavioral and hypothetical questions, we can use that system to our benefit. So let's talk about it a little bit. On the behavioral side, how can Gen AI possibly help us with our interview prep? Well, most of us humans, 99.9% of us, forget a lot of things, right? So what I might do is I might type out my behavioral answer and then paste it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, there's probably a couple steps that I missed in here. Can you fill in those gaps or tell me what the steps that I missed are likely are?" And then boom, it will probably fill in those steps for you. Now, of course, in my practice interview tool, my AI tool that's coming out on Monday, you're going to be able to do the same thing. Paste it in and get that feedback of what was missing. But ChatGPT, again, just as a more holistic approach, can fill in the gaps. And that's weird. I don't think that people are really using systems like that, AI systems to fill in the holes on the behavioral side, but it's incredibly beneficial. We just forget things, and there are natural things that we do, such as we maybe test something, we execute on something. Execution is commonly missed in behavioral answers. We forget to talk about our launch, the presentation, documentation. There's all these key things that we're typically missing. So you can speed up your prep with ChatGPT on the behavioral side. Now, on the hypothetical side, this is where it gets much trickier, but here are a few suggestions. So we take the job description and we throw it into ChatGPT and we say, hey, kick out 20 hypothetical practice job interview questions for me. A couple of small tips there. You are going to want to make sure to tell ChatGPT or whatever Gen AI tool you use, make the questions hypothetical, not behavioral. Sometimes it gets a little bit confused there. And then sometimes it will categorize the questions. You can ask it not to, meaning like this one is leadership or this one is cross collaboration. And I just ask it to avoid those items as well. Take those questions and ask basically ChatGPT, say, like, what are the themes? Like, what should I be clarifying constantly with these types of questions? When you think about the position, and then this is where you can throw in your resume as well. When you think about the position and my role, where do you see alignment in the critical areas I'm going to need to focus in on? This will help you with your frameworks. Then, what kind of assumptions could I make in a role like this? Bring in the relevancy of what's going on with Google Cloud right now. Can help you with some pre-planned assumptions. So lots of ways technology to help with your interview prep. Again, this is just one area that I want to focus in on. Let's go back to the questions and then we can continue to talk about it. But you can save time in filling in your answers on the behavioral side. And then you can definitely save time in creating some of the hypothetical steps that you need to create to make sure you're giving great answers to those questions. So leveraging these kinds of tools is going to be really, really helpful. Um, with Gen AI, there are a lot of tools out there now. I just, I kind of was I don't want to say early adopter of ChatGPT, but I just kind of dove in, right, or really, really early on, and it's the one that I use the most. But there's plenty of great tools out there, and the market will get more flooded, and it, we'll see more and more of it. But that's the one that I use. But I recommend anyone that you find personally to be useful. For Barcelona, okay. I have been to Barcelona, and I agree it's an amazing city, and the architecture especially is just stunning. What did you like about working at Google? Well, I think that most people will tell you, um, well, I really like the people. The people were kind of my number one. I still reflect fondly on my time there and all the great people I got to meet. And the googliness thing, I know there's a lot of like there can be some negativity out there, but Google for the most part does hire good people, and they're obviously taking additional steps now with that initial assessment, which we can talk about today. I'm going to do a quick YouTube short TikTok on that probably today or tomorrow, but um, most of the people are really, really nice. And so that's great. Obviously, we work with a ton of smart people. And so not being the smartest person in the room, which I never was my entire time there, was really also fun. If you look at that from a positive aspect, which I definitely did. So that was cool. The perks were obviously amazing. And I think that, when we look at the companies with the best perks, I kind of put Google and Meta as a tie. They both have unbelievable perks. The food, and I know people don't care about the food, but I'm 6 years removed from Google, but that food was, there were multiple food items that were like the best food I ever had, and it's funny because I had that conversation with a client this week about that already. Um, but the perks, the benefits are really great, but the people, just the learnings, the opportunities were all really good, and I obviously joined at a very exciting time too. I joined in 2013. I was on main campus. I got to go to all the Wednesday meetings with Sergey and Larry and be like right in the room with them. And, obviously it's gotten a lot bigger since then. 2013, people think Google was really big, but it wasn't that big then. It's obviously huge now, and it was big, but I really enjoyed kind of the smallness of it when I first joined as well. I've been in a 6-month, okay, contract role for 2 months. Should I also put its experience in my resume if I want to apply for an FTE role? 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And there's really no if you're going from TVC to FTE, if you've been there a week and you're looking to get onto another team, I mean, it's fine, put it on there. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing that after just 1 week, but if you've been there a couple months, do it. But I just the one thing I will say, the one caveat is, why are you applying? Like, you really shouldn't apply to any role at Google as a TVC going in looking for an FTE. You should be networking and getting and building connectivity with that hiring manager, and then when they're like, "Oh, you should really apply to this role," that's when you should be applying. Now, that might have been the step you've taken, and I might be making a wrong assumption here, but when you're internal, network, 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 that's what's gonna get you the job opportunities, okay? Just my 2 cents. Hi, Jeff. Interviews technically different from one company to another, but what are the main lines or shared things that we must be practicing? Okay, so I mean, for me, the number one and most common type of interview question asked at any company globally is a behavioral question. I mean, of course, yeah, there's the common questions. Tell me about yourself, why the company, why are you looking to make a change, or any of those common questions. Obviously, the common questions are common for a reason. That's why they're called common questions. But just make sure for those answers, rule of three, right? Think in an item of three in really 1 minute or less. They're warm up questions, they're first impression questions. You have to have good answers. But holistically and globally, the most common type of question is a behavioral question. Tell me about a time when, give me an example of, what did you do in X scenario, etc. So preparing for behavioral answers is and should be your default number one. Now, how many examples you have, it's really up to you. You really want to have probably 5 to 7 core great examples because your best initiatives, accomplishments, all that stuff, you're going to be able to spin that into multiple answers. But then you want to have some niche down answers too. Like, tell me about a time you failed, or tell me about a time you overcame a conflict. Like, you're going to want to have examples for those very common types of questions too. But behavioral questions, the number one type of question asked globally. Then, I mean, I do like preparing for the I want you to imagine how what would you do in X scenario? It's pretty rare that you will not get at least one hypothetical question at most companies. Do they really understand the difference between behavioral and hypothetical questions when they ask them at these organizations? Not always. But your overall approach is so important to understanding whether you're going to be a fit at the company. So practicing answers to questions like how would you do X? What would you do in Y scenario? I want you to imagine you're in Z scenario. What would you do? Them actually putting you in the role and you solving like you're in the role is going to be really critical too. So behavioral side, I recommend the STAR method: situation, task, actions, results. And then on the hypothetical side, the CFAS method: clarify, framework, assumption, solution. So a lot of depth there, which I won't go into now, but absolutely, I've done a lot of content on those 2 areas. Google, good people, perks. Yeah. Um, I mean, there's other things too, right? Just again, it's all about learning. One of the things I didn't mention that I think is great, and I don't really know what it looks like now, but imagine like the best database of learning resources imaginable, right? And obviously, we have so much learning and free learning at our fingertips, but so many great training programs and coursework. It used to be called Grow. I think it's still called Grow. I mean, just so access to resources like that is really helpful and something that I didn't take enough advantage of. I always put it in my OKRs and my goals, but I never really took full advantage. And now reflecting back, to have that kind of learning library, I would love to have access to something like that built by really smart, not only people, but the training department at Google that built some of those programs. Really, really good. Okay, this is a great question. Did you have any mentors? Do you recommend getting a mentor? Um, Not formally, but I formally, does that sound right? But I did have plenty of mentors in my time at Google, people who coached me and just kind of I think it's really where my level of professionalism completely changed. It really yeah, it really changed. I became much more of a professional. I also just got older, and so sometimes with age, you just have more learnings. It's just a thing, right? So, but right now, like in terms of overall mentorship, I strongly encourage people to get a mentor or have somebody in their life that really challenges them. If you don't have people in your life challenging you, and again, I know this is a whole side topic, but it's really important to have somebody challenge you. On my end, I do have mentors from previous jobs that I still stay in touch with and seek guidance from, but I do have a business coach. We meet every week. I've had that business coach for 4 years. I've had two business coaches in my business journey, and for anybody considering to be an entrepreneur or considering that path, you have to have a coach. Like, there's no way I could go out and coach people every month and not have somebody coaching me on how to improve myself and my skills. And so, I find that to be incredibly impactful, and not every session is gonna be earth-shattering, but it's just the consistency, the accountability. Those things are really, really critical. So that's something that I foresee always having as long as I'm running my own business. And I don't ever plan on going back to a corporate job. Resources, training, and opportunity. You can do so much with so many people to help you and champion you. It's amazing. Tina, for anybody who doesn't know, Tina is our rock star ABP. And so if you ever want to ask Tina about questions about being an ABP, you can jump into our Slack group at practiceinterviews.com. It's free. Tina, I'm putting you on the spot. You don't have to be in there all the time. It's super slow right now, but just a resource out there for you. And thanks for the playlist. If you haven't checked it out, Tina put a playlist, like her pre-interview playlist, on my last LinkedIn post. Check that out because it's just got a good Spotify playlist for everybody. Thanks for being here, Tina. Always good to see you. Here's food for thought. You know how one approach doesn't fit every employee? Well, that's the same for interviews. I understand the structure of the questions to be answered, but shouldn't we try to figure out the recruiter as much as we can to help formulate the answers? I can elaborate, but in my experience, I could answer the same question for 5 recruiters, but it depends on the mindset of the day. Did they have a terrible drive in or a fight with their spouse that morning? All of my advice is absolutely terrible if you are not reacting to the person you're speaking with, whether that's on the phone, whether that's in person, whether that's over Zoom or Google Meets, 100%. We have to adapt to the personality of the person sitting across from us or on the other line or whatever it might be. So if somebody tends to cut you off, build space, allow them to come in. If they just tend to sit back and listen, okay, drive the conversation a little bit more. Do they appear to be speeding you up? Shorten your answers. Do they appear to be intrigued? Lengthen your answers. And so 100%. But we do need a method. And so, whatever method you like on the behavioral side, we got to set that context. We got to share our actions and share our results. And then on the hypothetical side, we have to make sure that we are not making assumptions without clarifying, presenting our approach, our framework, our outline, building in role specific assumptions, and then solving. And going back to those role specific assumptions, why they're so important, it's here. It's all here. It creates the visual for your audience. People can follow along in a visual journey. They really struggle without those visuals. It's just I do a lot of my work is actually foundationally based on data and science, and so, like, the visual part of how I coach and teach is all backed by that. But 100% agree with you, like, we have to adapt, but I got an interesting I don't know if it was a LinkedIn or YouTube comment, but I'll just bring it up. And I was, obviously I was talking about interview preparation, no surprise there. But, they basically said, no, I don't like to do that. I just want to be myself. I don't want to not be myself. You can be yourself and be prepared and bring in a method and bring in a structure, but have it be a little bit fluid based on your audience. So, absolutely 100% valid point. Okay. We are at the 30s. I'm just going to quickly prompt on my services and then we'll get right back to the questions. So, the biggest news for me this week is next week, Monday, February 26th, I launched the paid version of my AI practice interviews tool, and we are going to launch it and make sure that I have a huge budget to continually improve that tool week over week based on user feedback. We did a lot of user interviews. We took all the feedback from the users and put it into the tool. We didn't just launch it, or we're not going to just launch it without your feedback. We spent 3 months getting feedback. Is it going to be 100% perfect? No, there is no perfect product, but we will continue to take that user feedback, and I will directly be working with users, doing user interviews, answering all the chats, all the emails, because I want to have the pulse on how people are experiencing the product. If you want to get a 30% discount on that product for the first week, just go to practiceinterviews.com or practiceinterviews.com/AI and sign up to be an early adopter. It takes 5 seconds and you'll get that 30% discount on the first month, first 3 months, first 6 months. And we're also giving a discount on the lifetime access. The lifetime access will be something we do for a really short period of time. So definitely check that out. Um, what else do I want to say? I'm still doing one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching. That's all available at practiceinterviews.com. $200 off. I wanted to do a special offer today on our interview mastery course. If you use the coupon code PIAI, that will be available till just 11:59 Pacific time in the US today. Again, that's PIAI for $200 off the interview mastery course. You like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday, and then new original content every single Monday. And I have been doing, I'm doing 20 videos over 4 weeks. So if you haven't checked out any of those newer videos, please do. Let's get back to it. What is the full name for the CFAS again for hypothetical questions? So CFAS is basically a method that I created that took me it took me kind of 2 to 3 years to realize that this system consistently works for answering hypothetical questions. Again, we want to adapt to our audience, but CFAS is we start by clarifying. So we ask clarifying questions. Really recommend either or no questions. If you ask either or yes or no questions, your interviewer is more likely to answer you. Then we bring in the framework. The framework is a very simplistic outline of items we want to tackle in our approach. So we might say, before solving, a few areas we might want to tackle. We absolutely want to look at the goals and objectives, the historical data. We want to observe all the risks and then talk to the critical stakeholders. That would be your framework or outline. Those are the key areas you want to focus in on. Then we make role specific assumptions. And the more specific, the better. So instead of saying working with a client, I'd say, I want to imagine I'm working with a large enterprise hoodie client and they have both brick and mortar and online stores. Because then as you solve for that hoodie, that enterprise hoodie business, you're creating a visual for your audience. And then you can connect things to sales, seasonality, etc. It makes it easier for the interviewer to follow along. Then as you solve, the last one is S, solve. Ideally, you have multiple solutions, but you maybe start by solving for the goals and objectives. Then you check in. Then maybe you talk a little bit more about the data and risk. Then you check in. Then you talk about stakeholder relationships, and then you check in. So multiple solutions usually yields the best answers. I hope that helps. Hi, Jeff. Are you aware of a 7 approvals after the hiring committee? 7 approvals after the hiring committee. Um, I'm not sure what that means, but I definitely wanna help. Can you provide a little bit more context? Is the question saying, "Are you aware that there's 7 additional approvals that come after hiring committee?" I do know that, post the freeze, they added in getting final approval on candidates, like more of an executive review that they had gotten rid of and they brought back, but that's really the last step before comp. As far as I know, I haven't heard of 7 additional steps. It's already so slow. Add Adding 7 steps sounds crazy, but tell us more. Okay, Kimberly McKinsey, how do you figure them out in a short time and deliver on the interview with that approach? Uh, I'm not sure, because sometimes with LinkedIn and the LinkedIn build-in, sometimes people come through as LinkedIn users, so I don't know if we're connecting this to a question that Kimberly asked, but I'm not making the connection, so please come back and ask again, because I really would like to help. Applied for several positions, but a bit confused about the long titles. How can I make sure I'm applying for the right position, keeping in mind we can only apply to 3 positions within 30 days? I always throw this back, and say, "You know the roles that are a fit for you." Titles, I wouldn't worry too much about the titles. Titles don't and are not always as transferable, right? So I don't worry too much about the titles. What I look at is I look at the overall job description. So again, I know we're focusing in on Google, so it's about the job. Does the overall overview of the job seem like it's aligned with what I wanna do? Then I look at the responsibilities. I ask myself a couple of questions. First of all, can I do this stuff? Second of all, do I like this stuff? And then third of all, does this seem reasonable? Are these the responsibilities of 1 role or 2 roles or 3 roles? Sometimes the responsibilities can tell you that you're gonna be taking on quite a bit. So that's something else to look at. And then I just take a quick peek at the min and preferred qualifications. Just understanding that if I have some of those preferred qualifications, that's gonna uptick my likelihood of getting an interview. But, the job description, it's really a feel item, and you're not gonna really know. So much of it is just saying, "Okay, do I wanna work for this company? Do I think the overall role is a fit?" And then you'll have to determine in the process, hopefully when you get there and when you get there, um, if everything feels right. But those are some of the simple steps that I take. Okay. Thanks for the explanation. Absolutely, like, you will just see endless amounts of videos where I talk about the CFAS method, and if you check out any of the 17 videos that I've produced over the last, 4 weeks, any of those hypothetical videos, they're gonna have, like, a share of the overall approach. I actually walk through every single thing I look for in the CFAS method, and you can just pause those videos. You can pause it, take a screenshot so you have that image. I'm not trying to hide my approach, and I'm gonna be really transparent even with the AI tool. What are the specific things that we're looking for to make sure that you're bringing a great answer to the table, right? And that's my goal. My goal is to make sure that you're just crushing it, and that I'm not holding anything back from the community because I think that's ultimately what's going to yield success for everybody. Okay, we're out of questions. So please, any and all questions are welcome. But in our downtime, and we always prepare this, or we have we have somewhat of a plan for this. So how do you prepare for a job interview? So we talked about a couple of areas. We talked about using specifically ChatGPT to help fill in the holes of your behavioral answers, and then using ChatGPT to create practice questions, and then starting to work through the method of how you would build clarifying questions, your framework, your assumptions, and solution. Let's talk a little bit more about how to prepare. So, really interacting with somebody like me or interacting with an AI tool like the one that I have coming out this upcoming Monday, it is incredibly critical as part of your prep and practice that you are speaking your answers out loud. We need to talk through it. fumble through it a little bit. And so even with my clients, when they fumble through, I say, this is a good thing. We never wanna go into the interview cold without having spoken our answers out. Yeah, of course, there's a million other items to consider. Body language, adapting to our interviewer, smiling, good energy, all that stuff is critical. But at the end of the day, they are going to judge you on your answers, and while statistically, they say that our words only account for about 7%, in the job interview, it's more because your words really do matter, and we know they're not paying 100% attention, but they're paying probably closer attention than they would in their normal day-to-day life. So, we gotta speak it out loud. I think that one of the biggest missing pieces of the puzzle, if you're with us now, like, I cannot emphasize this enough. Writing down and restating the question, it's I don't know why it's not talked about all over the place. There should be billions of views for that. The vast majority of people in the interview process will actually answer the wrong question. And now I'm not saying the complete wrong question, but it's adjacent. It's not really answering the correct question. So that one piece of advice is just I don't see it a lot online. Write it down and restate it. Make sure that you're answering the right question. And hey, look, like this is personal too. This happened to me. I was interviewing at Waymo, Google's self-driving car division, and it was the best 3 interviews of my entire life, with the exception of one question where I answered the wrong question. Now I recognized it, I figured it out in the interview, I fixed it, but I didn't get the job, and it's because I didn't answer the right question. It's really critical. So as you practice preparing for a job interview, write it down and restate it. Write it down and restate it. I'm being repetitive for a reason. It's just a critical misstep in the process. Um, what else do I want to talk about? I think that the physical setup is oftentimes a missed part of the prep, and that's getting the lighting right. You really want the lighting coming in. I intentionally always have a window in front of me, so light's coming in. Now, with this bad fluorescent light that I have in here and with the dark day, it's not perfect. But also, we want to make sure our volume is good, our Wi Fi is good, the dog is maybe getting walked. There's no distractions. It's quiet. The Wi-Fi is working. If you can hardwire in, even better. We just don't want to have any snafus, and like you can actually prepare for that. You can prepare and practice with somebody else questions to ask at the end of the interview. It's just there's so many ways that we're just not putting the time and energy, and we can I can go down a tangent, which I'm not going to do, but I think with every job opportunity, the average person is changing jobs. A few years ago, it was like 7, so let's call it 8 or 9 opportunities now, but why wouldn't we put all of our efforts into that opportunity, especially when it could make us happier, number 1, and then mean more money, career progression. So I think one of the biggest pieces of advice too is spend more time. It's just too critical it's too critical and has too big of an impact on our life to not spend more time. Oh, okay. So yeah, we answered that question. So again, same advice. Um, there's really no such thing as the right role. You do want to optimize for the 3 roles that you're applying for. And I did take a look yesterday. And there's been a little bit of an uptick in the openings. I'm seeing that a little bit on the client side, more clients coming in. There's about 1,800 global roles open for Google right now. So 1,800, it's a lot. In the US, there's about 500, I think. Um, I think that number's correct. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that sounds about right. So just be discerning. That's all. That's all I can say. But actual advice in terms of what's going to be the best role for you, just really dive into the job description. That's my recommendation for anybody. Just really, really dive in. And if it feels pretty good, okay. But hey, if you can only do 3 in a month and you've already applied to 2, maybe you're a little bit more rigid in that 3rd one that you apply for. Okay. We are approaching 45 minutes in. A little bit slow. Maybe it's in the US, it was a holiday yesterday, but please, any additional questions or comments, anything that you think is relevant or you want to chat about today, uh, I could talk at this audience for quite a long time about how to prepare for a job interview, but the goal is engagement with the community. So, any other questions, anything else you want to bring to the table, please let me know. Okay, let's get back to preparing for a job interview. I'm going to speak a few more minutes on this item, and then if no additional questions come in, we'll roll into our wrap up and have a little bit of a shorter session today. One of the other ways to really make a big difference in how you prepare. Oh, my lighting was down. All right, that's better. Okay. Sometimes the technical stuff comes in very, very late. So one of the other items that we want to be thinking about is, okay, yes, we want to speak our answers out loud. Yes, we want to use maybe AI tools to fine tune our answers as well. But if you do have the opportunity to practice with others, one of the other ways to prepare for your job interview and guarantee that you get that practice time in is to make sure that you make it as easy on your intended audience as possible. What does that mean? Okay, I'm going to take my good buddy who I grew up with, John. Let's say John, I want John to help me practice. Well, what I'm going to do with John is I'm going to create all the practice interview questions for John. I am going to provide John with a Calendly link. And if you don't have a Calendly, you pay the 10 or 20 bucks a month when you're doing and in the prep process. I'm going to have John be able to go on my calendar, find a time that works best for him. Again, beforehand, I'm going to send him the questions. I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that the person who's willing to practice with me is set up, that they don't have to do any of the work. And then I'm also going to bribe them. So John, for example, John's really healthy, so I might send John like a $50 gift card to a local smoothie place. He's in Metro Boston area, so I might send him a gift card or something to incentivize him, or not even incentivize him, which you can do on the end, but just as a thank you as well. I think sometimes we get away from prepping with others a little too much because like we're worried that we're going to burden them. But if you create all the steps to make it easy for them, like giving them the Calendly link, giving them the questions, and those questions, I don't really want you to look at them. Again, I want you to just go to ChatGPT, throw the job description into it or whatever your Gen AI tool is, get it to pull up the questions, copy and paste, but don't even look at them. Because I also want you to be prepared to answer questions that you're not really ready to answer. And that's another big reason for why practice and practice with another human being can be really, really efficient. But do the upfront prep work. Get your behavioral answers down, get your hypothetical answers down. Use practice interviews AI tool to fine tune and sharpen your answers, and then take that final step of scheduling time with people. The last piece is remember everybody's lens is different. So do it with multiple different people so you can get different feedback from multiple people. Now, you can also set it up where you could say, "Hey, I want you to look for these things during our conversation." But the reality is our friends and family members are not going to be interview experts, but we just want to go through that practice and take any feedback that they say and make sure it's important, right? Because everybody's feedback is important so that we take that in. I hope that helps. Do you know what else I should prepare for if I hear back from the local hiring manager? I'm not all familiar with the hiring process at Google. Thank you. Well, it sounds like, Ethan, from what you mentioned earlier on, that you passed the interviews. So looks like they're just looking to team match you. And again, your recruiter should really be defining this, but looks like they're looking to match you with a team in your local job environment, especially with a little bit of that return to office, right? So you're going to have to probably be in a hybrid environment. Most people are at this point. So basically, it's a casual conversation. Think 30 minutes. Most of those conversations are, "Hi, how are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why are you interested in this role?" The hiring manager will spend 15 minutes talking about the role, the team, and then they'll leave time for your questions. It's at least 50% of the team matches. That's how I've heard them. That's the feedback I get. Now, You could be asked behavioral questions. You could be asked hypothetical questions. You could really be challenged. But that's pretty standard. It's a half an hour call. It's not a scored interview. It's just casual, but you treat it with the utmost respect and professionalism because the hiring manager is basically deciding whether they want to bring you on or not. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, thanks again for following me about hearing back from the sourcer after a month of delays. Turns out she's still there, but her inbox was a mess. Totally unacceptable. I mean, that's just if that's the excuse that came in, "Sorry for not getting back to you, my inbox was a mess." Please, 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 no matter where this process ends, that sourcer needs to feel the pain of their lack of organization. Anybody who's been in these lives before, I am super tough on sourcers and recruiters, and I think I've earned it, right? So, I was in those roles for a long time. Inbox management, when you're in a people-facing role, is critical. It does not mean that you have to spend even any time in a given day in your email inbox, but you do have to have a method for answering emails from candidates. And I had a really simple philosophy. At the end of every day, I wouldn't leave at the end of every day without making sure I followed up with any candidate who reached out to me. I also had my Friday follow-ups. So everybody who was in any state of the interview process would hear from me on Fridays with the status update. And that's the bare minimum. That stuff, it's not hard. It's just the biggest challenge is I don't think that recruiters are being trained appropriately on organizational skills. And this isn't just Google, this is everywhere. There's only 3 skills they need. They need to know how to organize their inbox, number 1. They need to know how to organize their candidates within their applicant tracking system, in this case, GHire. And then 3rd, they need to know how to manage their calendars. It's a Those are really simple things for the compensation. The sourcers and recruiters at Google, and hey, I know I was one of them. I was massively overcompensated for the work I did. I mean, it just the level of skill needed to do that job was not commensurate with the salary. Salary overpaid for that job. So if the response was my inbox is a mess, and I know I went off on a tangent here, so forgive me. Um, yeah, you just in when you get that survey at the end of the process, you need to say, "This is 100% unacceptable that my sourcer was unable to get back to me, and the excuse was my inbox was a mess." And by the way, you're definitely not getting that feedback from the third party. You're getting that directly from the sourcer, which means they're using an excuse for not to get back to you. Even worse. Yeah. For any behavioral questions, do you recommend always going back to the 3 top skills that align with the job requirement and using specific examples to create the story? This is a great question. So, role relevance with our behavioral answers is important. We want to be thinking about examples that we think would excite our audience for the specific role. But I actually coach a little bit differently. Your best behavioral examples are your best behavioral examples. And we're not trying to find niche down examples, or it's not my recommendation to find niche down examples that are really more role specific. We're going to highlight our best projects, programs, initiatives, accomplishments. And those are going to be our best examples because those are going to be able to intertwine within any behavioral question, and we're going to be able to pivot. And that's a big thing that I think that I haven't talked about yet on the behavioral side. One of the favorite videos that I ever did, and the thumbnail's ridiculous. It's an old Friends reference. Um, anyway, the whole point is the pivot point. One of the biggest things we want to remember about our accomplishments. Let's take like your best accomplishment. Well, the pivot point of the answer is it may ask for, it may be a question about process where we can think about, okay, where did I really start to implement the process? That could be one. Strategy, that could be another answer where you're bringing it in later in the process where you actually went to the testing and execution phases. Like, we really just wanna be thinking about the overall question and where we wanna shape our answers as opposed to making sure that every answer is going to make our interview audience excited. I focus more on the example itself than making the example's role relevant. Okay. What is the difference between a recruiter and a hiring manager? Who has the final say? The recruiter only has the okay, so let me take a step back. So the recruiter can make the initial decision. Most of their initial decisions are based on communication skills. So in the recruiter screen, communicate, be kind, be on time, be friendly, ask good questions. They may challenge you a little bit with a behavioral or hypothetical question. I would do that sometimes when the hiring manager gave me questions. I'd say, "Hey, we can't find the right candidate. Give me a few questions to ask them to rule out a candidate." And then I'd tell the candidate, "Hey, like these are a few questions coming from the hiring manager. They're make or break. So if you can answer them, great. If you can't, we're done." Right? But the recruiter makes the initial decision, but the final say is absolutely the hiring manager. The only time that the recruiter can have a final say is if somebody really has some personality challenges. Let me bring in an example because I think it'll be helpful. In my entire time at Google, I only really rejected one person at the end of the process. Long story short, basically, here's what happened. I went on vacation. My boss, she took over with this candidate. I went, I saw their exchange in the applicant tracking system because everything's tracked, all the emails, all the conversations. This candidate was an absolute jerk to my manager. I looked at it, I went, I spoke with her, I said, "I don't think we should hire this person." She says, "I think we're good to go." I said, "I wanna reject this person." She says, "Okay, I support that." We went to the hiring manager, we showed them what was going on. They agreed this person was not googly and shouldn't be on the team. So I made the decision, I reached out and I told them, "I made this decision. You're not moving forward because you did not act at a level of professionalism that we expect of this organization, and it's a great learning lesson for you, and you'll never do it again." And I hope it was. I can't remember who that person was, but that's what happened, but 99.9% of the time, the hiring manager has the final say. Gracious, kind to everybody, but the recruiter just doesn't have that power, and so why is that so important to know? And we gotta be really careful with the organization because at some organizations, they have a little bit more power than others, but when they say, "I'm gonna rescind this offer," think about that. If you get to the offer stage and I'm the hiring manager and the recruiter's acting to rescind the offer, you have to be a pretty big jerk, again, I know I'm using that word, but you'd have to do some really bad things to get that recruiter in a place where they could really push and decide that you're not valuable for the organization. And just as a side note, because I have lots of side notes, of course, um, I did have a recent experience with a very large company where my client treated this company with a ton of respect and graciousness and kindness, and a lead recruiter came in for the regular recruiter and did rescind the offer, and it was really, really nasty. Like, this person had a vendetta, and basically, this company allowed that recruiter's vendetta, to remove this offer. It was a crazy, crazy scenario, and that organization lost a really good candidate because this recruiter just decided that they were the decision maker and obviously made some incredibly false statements about my client in order to rescind. It's a long story. Not enough context there, and I don't really want to share the company because it's all negative. It's not Google related. Um, okay. I have an interview with 5 people tomorrow, third round. When I send my thank you email, thinking of including an amazing reference from my last role to each of them to get that edge. Is that okay to do it? 100%. Um, I like thank you notes that are short. So the shorter the better, but if you could just do the 3 or 4 sentence, "Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really enjoyed speaking about X. X is gonna be specific to that person. I'm looking forward to next steps. And by the way, I'm sharing this with all the other interviewers. This was just a cool note that somebody shared about me in my last role." But if that's paragraphs, reconsider. If it's a short blurb, 100% totally okay to do it. Um, and just to go back, not Google related, I'm not really Google related. I mean, I am, and I understand that people show up because I have the background at Google, but the reality is that I'm more of a generic coach. I coach on best practices and best methods, and it really the company is irrelevant. I just happen to have worked at Google and done a few videos on Google on my YouTube channel, and I get that people are here because I have that past experience, but I do consider myself more of a generic coach, and any and all questions are always welcome. Hey, Jeff, how would you approach negotiating with a privacy SaaS company for options? If there's no bonus and the company is profitable, is it worth asking for more? 100%. Okay. So with a privacy SaaS company for options, just with the smaller companies when negotiating, negotiate carefully because I have seen that smaller companies can be a little bit more reactive when negotiating. But absolutely, should you be trying to get more options? 100%. Are options real money? Most of the time, not really. So if they are just giving you a base salary and there's no bonus and they're giving you options, I would be negotiating that base comp as much as you can. Remember, bases aren't going to move that much, but I would be negotiating base and options, but just tread lightly. I mean, I'm intrigued by the opportunity, appreciate the opportunity to meet with the team. In order to move forward, I'm looking at the number of options, and I'm looking to earn X. So you're bringing that options number up, and again, do the same thing with the base salary. Again, just very careful language with smaller companies because smaller companies, they're less mature and can be more likely to rescind. Even though it happens at all levels, just tread lightly. You are welcome. Thanks for the engagement. Hello, Jeff. I love your videos and tips. Awesome. This Friday, I have my last two interviews for the summer internship at Google. What do you think I should be focusing on? Okay, Mateo. So, absolutely, internships can lean a little bit on the behavioral side. Tell me about a time when. Give me an example of. So, with internships, you want to be focusing in on those really good school projects, volunteer projects. You're not always going to have as much work experience as those going into more traditional roles. So, really think about those experiences and building those answers. Obviously, I want you to be ready for the hypothetical. If it's a technical internship, be ready for any of those technical items, but get some of those good examples down. That's one of the best ways to succeed in those interviews. But as always, be ready for anything and make sure you're adapting to your interviewer as much as possible. Oh, hey, Kimberly. Yeah, so sorry, the way I read it was probably just incorrect. Kimberly McKenzie, I was a client of yours. My second interview, the manager was impressed that I had hired a coach. She brought it up and asked questions about it as the recruiter's note stated it. That was my question about the third interview tomorrow. Wish me luck. Okay, Kimberly, good luck. It's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting that that came up. I mean, I think if I was a recruiter, I would be recommending that people were definitely practicing and prepping and obviously using tools and hiring coaches. It's all important. One of the pieces that I love about working with clients is you're automatically going to be better if you invest with me. Why? Because statistically, it's proven that when you invest your money, you're more invested in the overall process of what you're putting your money into. So every time a client books with me, they're already more engaged than the average person who's interviewing. I mean, that's not to push my services. It's just to say, look, engagement is engagement, and you've done a great job of being engaged. And obviously, there's a reason why you're getting to this final interview, and it has less to do about me and more to do about you and the work that you're putting in, the investment of time and money that you've made in yourself. Good luck. Please let me know how it goes. And of course, with everybody, I'm here to help you negotiate if you need it. You're welcome, Mateo. Okay. Um, we're just past an hour. I'm going to go into, we're out of questions. I'm going to go into my wrap up mode. And then if any additional questions come in while I'm going into wrap up, I'm happy to answer them. Oh, let's take this one from Mateo first, actually. I would also like to hear your opinion about the Q&A moment at the end of the interview. What questions do you think make me stand out? My advice, people have heard this a million times, but I give the same advice. What do you love about the company? What do you love about your role? What do you love about the team? What's the coolest thing you're working on? Love, 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 coolest. How do you think they're gonna walk out of that face to face, pop off the video, get off the phone? What do you think they're gonna be thinking about you, Matteo? They're gonna be thinking, "I really love Matteo. He was cool." It's not it's it's not a strategy that comes without data and science backing, okay? And again, it's kind of my overall approach. I know it sounds so silly. People like you more if they talk about themselves. Biggest failure in every job interview at the end is, "What's the biggest challenge I'm gonna face? What am I gonna find?" Me, 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 me. Make it about them. Make it about them. It's the end of the interview. So they go out talking about themselves, they're naturally gonna like you more. I don't see anybody else giving this advice. It's not to tap myself on the back, it's data and science. People will like you more the more they talk about themselves. Ask about them. That's my biggest recommendation. Do you think it's appropriate to mention personal interest during the interview? If yes, when? Not my advice. Some other people like it. If it comes up casually, like, uh, I don't know, maybe you're a gardener and you love gardening, and that comes up, and they talk about how they were gardening all weekend. Yeah, it's probably cold in Connecticut to be gardening right now, but again, just if it comes up naturally, yes, but I would not recommend bringing it up if they don't bring something up, and here's why. Because you're gonna, potentially run into somebody like me. I don't like personal items in a job interview. I'm all business, it's all serious, there's no playing around, and I don't wanna hear about anything personal, even though your volunteer work probably says more about you than any answer you could give about a past experience at a job, but that's just the intent of the job interview is to keep it really on a professional level, and so don't force it. If it comes up naturally, it's great. If it comes up naturally, that's a good sign, but I wouldn't bring it in. I wouldn't be the person to proactively bring it in. Just my 2 cents. You're welcome. Absolutely. Okay, let's go into that wrap up again. Any additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. Monday, February 26th. I will tell everybody we're launching our AI tool. Our global paid launch is Monday, February 26th. Go to practiceinterviews.com, sign up to be an early adopter. You'll get a 30% discount for the first week. It's worth it for those 5 seconds to get the 30% discount. And early adopters, we're giving a 30% discount on the lifetime access to the tool. That option is probably only gonna be available for a week. We're probably gonna pull it down. I just wanna out there because I'm so appreciative for anybody who's been on this journey with me to date. I wanna go backwards for a second because I think it'll just be an interesting conversation. So I actually built a second business. Starting in 2022 and into 2023, I built a corporate business. But when AI popped, I always kinda in the back of my mind, I was trying to push the corporate thing, but I was like, "Oh, this AI thing, like, I wanna get on board." And I never really got the corporate side of the business going. So with the AI stuff, I started to think about this almost a year ago. And then in the summertime of last year, I started to build the prompts and build and tweak and build and tweak. And I hired a dev team in September. And we've been working on this for 5 months, 3 months, 3 months of user feedback and allowing users in. I am 100% confident that the feedback you get on your answers and how we pinpoint where to fix the feedback is the best in market right now. And I've tested the competition. I really feel like I can stand here and say this. Again, I'm standing for good energy. So it's just something to note. I'm really, really excited to be at this point. So thank you, everybody who's been on this journey. Monday is our launch date. Again, sign up as an early adopter to get that 30% off. Still doing one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching. It's really tight this week, just based on the launch. One session left till next Tuesday. You can always email me if you want me to squeeze you in at practiceinterviews.com. Special offer on the interview mastery course, $200 off the interview mastery course. That's just today. If you use the coupon code PIAI, again, that's PIAI And that will just be available till 11:59 Pacific tonight. If you like what you today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time Tuesday. New original content every Monday. I will be taking next Monday off. Check out that 20 video series that I've done coming up to the end of this week. Those videos will really help set up everything AI tools. You can see how good that feedback is. I'm so excited to be back next week with that launch. It's been so much work. I'm just mentally trying to get past the stress, but it will be amazing. And thank you everybody for being here. And yes, shoveling and good luck. Thank you. I don't miss the shoveling. I moved from Boston 20 years ago, and I have not missed the shoveling piece. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and we'll be back next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Thanks, Mateo. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.